We are back in the studio. Well, I don't have much to say because many say, oh, she's not a lawyer. She doesn't have to tell us what's going on. And thank God for today. We have, again, Mr. God's Power Egbule, lawyer, politician. Should I say so?
No, I'm not a politician.
Okay, you're not a politician. Okay, he's a lawyer, but a public affairs analyst. He's going to be talking about the judgment of the Supreme Court today. Well, I'm sure by now many people, all the news channels have, taken the story of what the Supreme Court decided on the issue between the Rivers State Governor and the Rivers State House of Assembly led by Martins and Egbule. Very many people say it is Governor Fubara versus Wike. Well, it's for you to judge. Right now, we've heard the Supreme Court, even though we've not gotten the full, the enrolled order, but we can tell you that a lot went down today. For some persons, it's a good day, but I think it's actually a very bad day for democracy in Rivers State, in the sense that this could have been avoided. It could have been avoided. There was a judgment by the High Court, Justice Kayode Omotosho. Unfortunately, even the Court of Appeal upheld that judgment and ruled against the governor. Yet, instead of adopting a political approach to the problem, they decided to go to the Supreme Court. The matters were consolidated, different appeals. I'm not a lawyer, so I expect that the lawyer in the studio will tell us what the issues were and what the Supreme Court said today. So I want to welcome to today's program my friend, my brother, God's Power Egbule Esquire. Like I said, lawyer and political affairs analyst. You're welcome, my brother.
Thank you, dear Martin.
Yeah, thank you.
Always my pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. We actually missed you the last time. Your friend, Barrister Soboye Eli, they said we shouldn't call people barrister. We should be asking
your
Mr.
name then Esquire.
Esquire. So Mr. Soboye Eli Esquire was here, and we wanted to have both of you on set, to deal with some of the issues. But I think those things have also been overtaken by events. Considering, I'm quoting the Supreme Court.
This is the best time you can actually use the word.
Okay, I'm quoting Femi Falana and
yes.
Okay, fine. They've been overtaken by events because something new has happened at the Supreme Court today. So please, can you give us an insight to what actually played out? What was it? What were the issues? And then why did the Supreme Court toe that line? It's like everything about the judgment of Omotosho was upheld by the Supreme Court.
Okay, first of all, if you take a look at the issues that we have in Rivers State, there were principally 3 issues, in 6 different appeals.
Yeah.
Because in those appeals, you also had cross appeal.
Okay.
So there were issues where Right Honorable Martins and Egbule appealed,
okay,
and you also see the governor filing a cross appeal on that issue. That kind of situation happens when both parties are appealing against the same judgment.
Okay.
But first of all, let me say that what has happened today with respect to the judgment of the Supreme Court is that the Supreme Court has risen to the occasion to enforce constitutional democracy, because the issues in Rivers State are purely issues of law. And what the Supreme Court has done now is that the Supreme Court has indeed apply the law the way that it should be. You know that from the judgment of Honorable Justice Omotosho, we had a lot of issues before Honorable Justice Omotosho. Number one was whether the governor can seize their money standing to the credit of the House of Assembly, whether the governor can transfer the clerk, whether the National Assembly can take over the functions of the Rivers State House of Assembly. Yeah. Then we had the issue of the budget. We had the issue of whether the governor can restrict the House of Assembly from performing their functions.
Yeah.
Now, Honorable Justice Omotosho gave his judgment on the 22nd of January 2024. Now, the governor appealed. The Court of Appeal upheld the judgment of Honorable Justice Omotosho. But the governor didn't want to still, obey the judgment of the Court of Appeal, wherein Right Honorable Martins and Egbule and the House of Assembly now approached the Federal High Court, saying that in the light of the governor, breaching the provisions of Section 120, which provides that the governor cannot spend any money standing to the credit of the Consolidated Revenue Fund of Rivers State without a budget, whether the governor can still continue to make withdrawals from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. And the Federal High Court ruled that the governor, in the absence of a budget, cannot make withdrawals from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of Rivers State.
Okay, that's a different court.
Yes, that's a different court.
Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik. Okay,
yes,
that's
yes.
good.
I'm giving a rundown of all the matters.
Okay.
Now, the court gave a judgment that money standing to that credit, the governor cannot continue to withdraw it and stop the allocation of Rivers State. Then, while that one was also going on, you had the local government election. The governor conducted the local government election in clear breach of his subsisting order of court. So that matter also went from the Federal High Court to the Court of Appeal. Now, at the Court of Appeal dismissed that matter on the basis of jurisdiction. Same with that of the allocation case.
Okay.
Then these matters were now taken to the Supreme Court. So today, the Supreme Court finally determined these two issues, because the other issue had already been determined when the governor withdrew his appeal at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but so, many people didn't believe.
I had said that withdrawal itself means there was no other issue standing with respect to the House of Assembly before the Supreme Court. So you now had two issues, which were the issues of local government election and statutory allocation coming to Rivers State.
This local government election was the one filed by APC.
Yes.
And the chairman, Antonio Kocha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you had all of these issues that the Supreme Court now decided on today. Now the Supreme Court now upheld the judgment of the Federal High Court, stopping that of allocation, and also upheld the judgment of the Federal High Court nullifying the elections. So for me, I think what the Supreme Court has done today is to uphold constitutional democracy. And the reason why we must commend the Supreme Court is that you know that the Supreme Court is not just a court of law, it's also a policy court.
Okay.
Too often, governors, in brazen disregard of constitutional provisions, think that local government must be tied to the apron strings of every governor. But what has happened today, every election, local government election, must strictly comply with the provisions of the law.
Yeah, so on the issue of stopping the allocation to Rivers State, Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik ruled in favor of Egbule and co, where she said that the matter, they had jurisdiction, to try the matter at the Federal High Court. But when the Court of Appeal sat on that matter, the court said, no, it's a state matter because you're talking of state funds. But today we are seeing the Supreme Court say something else. They are upholding Justice Abdul-Malik's judgment. Can you throw more light on that? Because a lot of people may still believe that it's actually a state matter and should be tried by the state court.
Okay, I think I have made offerings in this regard before.
Okay.
Now, I've had cause to read the judgment of Honorable Justice Abdul-Malik, with respect to that of allocation.
Yeah.
Now, if you take a look at Section 251 of the Constitution, the Federal High Court has exclusive jurisdiction with respect to agencies of government. And you see, you will say that the money belongs to the state, but which agency of government transfers such money to the state? It is the Supreme Court. So, it is the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Yeah, okay.
And the Central Bank of Nigeria is an agency of government. It's an agency of the federal government. So by virtue of Section 251 of the Constitution, the Federal High Court has jurisdiction to determine that matter. And I've said that before. When the Court of Appeal nullified the judgment of the Federal High Court, I said, well, it's another opportunity for the Supreme Court, to bear the jurisdiction of courts, because jurisdiction itself is pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution. No court can entertain a matter that it does not have jurisdiction to entertain. So the Constitution itself circumscribes courts with respect to their own jurisdiction. And I've said that by virtue of Section 251, it is the Federal High Court. No state high court can determine such a matter, because any order you make, you're making an order against an agency of the federal government. So the Constitution itself gives the Federal High Court the jurisdiction to determine such a matter.
In fact, the Supreme Court said today that the Federal High Court has jurisdiction in all matters.
Well, I may not entirely agree with
that report.
Yes, that report. That report may not represent the full details of what the Supreme Court. Yes.
Okay.
The Federal High Court jurisdiction is provided in Section 251 of the Constitution.
Section 251.
So, yes, any of the matters not listed in Section 251 of the Constitution, the Federal High Court does not have jurisdiction. In fact, by virtue of our Constitution, we can say that it's even the State High Court that has unlimited jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yes, but that jurisdiction now, when you now see another provision of the Constitution giving exclusive jurisdiction to any other court,
So
then
that's
you
one.
know that the State High Court does not have jurisdiction.
Okay.
For instance, the National Industrial Court has jurisdiction with respect to labor-related matters.
Okay.
The State High Court cannot determine such a matter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Wow.
the Federal High Court to have jurisdiction over government matters, companies.
So now, looking at the reports from the Supreme Court, I saw a lot of statements made by the court. You know, the panel of 5 justices, and they were all in agreement, which means that that judgment, how do you describe it in law?
It's a unanimous judgment.
It's a unanimous judgment. Oh, good. Now, the court says the Supreme Court will not only back, but also bite, and if necessary, break bones. And I remember in the Court of Appeal judgment at upheld Justice Omotosho's judgment, I think it was Justice Okon Aban who used these exact words. Now, the court also frowned at the governor's flagrant disregard for the provisions of the Constitution. But again, I'm worried because I am aware that even the governor has a team of lawyers, respected lawyers. He also has the Attorney General of the state who has a PhD, who is also intelligent. I'm aware that even the SSG has a PhD in law. The Chief of Staff is also a lawyer and probably has a PhD or something. So what actually happened? Is it that they were tinkering with it, thinking that there's going to be something, you know, a loophole or a technical reason for them to get this job? Because if you look at the judgment, it's a total loss with a cost of 5 million awarded again against the governor.
Well, a very complex question that you have asked, but you see, the rules of professional conduct forbids me from speaking with respect to the workings of a legal practitioner. So I will not speak on that. The only thing I can say is that every Nigerian is entitled to a legal practitioner of his choice, including the governor. But they say we also bear the consequences of a legal practitioner that we choose.
Okay.
The truth is that the governor has a total disobedience to the provisions of the Constitution, acted as a dictator in Rivers State, because at some point the governor now made it appear that he is the one that will recognize members of the House of Assembly.
He said in fact he doesn't recognize them, that they are gone.
And so for him, if he doesn't recognize them, they are no longer members of the House of Assembly. Also speaking, so much about executive rascality, which is exactly what the Court of Appeal also lambasted the governor. But I'm sure that his lawyers at this moment will review what the Supreme Court has said and advise him in the next step that he should take.
Is there any remedy, particularly with the issue of the local government election? I understand the Supreme Court also invalidated that election. So where do we go from here?
Where we will go from here is that, like I said before, the ball, has left the court of the governor. It's now with the House of Assembly.
Oh.
Now, it's now left for the House of Assembly because the governor has committed a lot of infractions.
Wow.
It now depends on what the House of Assembly will do, from this point. The House of Assembly can choose to let go of the constitutional infractions of the governor, or the House of Assembly can decide to take action, because at the moment, what we have is that monies in 2024 were expended without a budget. We're just beginning 2025, and maybe the governor can choose to now represent the budget of 2025. But what the governor has done is that the governor has admitted that he spent monies in Rivers State in 2024 without an approved budget. And that itself is a very dangerous precedent.
Wow. Now, the Supreme Court also said something, I'll quote, "The situation in Rivers State is dictatorship by Governor Sim and has nothing to do with democracy." Exactly. It went further to say, as it is, there is no government in Rivers State.
Well, if you take a look at our Constitution provides for 3 arms of government.
Okay.
And none should be muzzled out. You have, first, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. if there is no executive and you have the legislature and the judiciary, by the intent of the constitution, you don't have a government, because what forms a government is that you have a legislature that makes the law, you have executive that enforces the law, then you have a judiciary that interprets the law. But the situation we had in Rivers State was where the governor now usurped the powers of the assembly and was now acting as the assembly for himself, because obviously the assembly he was using was not a constitutionally legally recognized House of Assembly. So the governor was breaching the provisions of the constitution, where he was now acting both as a legislature and the executive. So in that light, you would agree with the Supreme Court that we didn't have a government, because you must have the legislature, you must have the executive, you must have the judiciary. Because the legislature confirms nominations.
Oh.
Now, and I wanted to say something when you said the Attorney General.
Yeah.
You see, what we have at the moment may be, for choice of words, embattled Attorney General.
Okay.
Do not forget that pursuant to the orders made by Honorable Justice Wali,
okay,
Right Honorable Martin Samehule appealed that order, that ex parte order that restrained them from acting. Now, the Court of Appeal quashed the entire order of Honorable Justice Wali and also quashed everything that Okojumbo did. That matter was not appealed to the Supreme Court.
Till date.
So when you now have somebody still saying, I'm the Attorney General of Rivers State, I'm the Attorney General of Rivers, there is a subsisting order of the Court of judgment of the Court of Appeal that quashed your nomination,
your screening,
and your appointment. So you are not the Attorney General.
You don't exist in the
eyes of the law. You don't exist. But you see, we're dealing with a public that may not be too informed with respect to legal issues.
Okay.
So we can't call anybody Attorney General of Rivers State at the moment, because we have a subsistent judgment of the Court of Appeal which has not been appealed to the Supreme Court.
And that takes me to this other question. The Martin Amehule, the court, from the courts, the lower court to the appeal court and to the Supreme Court, has been confirmed as the speaker.
Yes.
It means that the resolutions passed by Martins within the period,
yes,
while this case lasted, are legal. Now, it also means that whatever the governor did with another assembly outside Amehule, they are all illegal.
True.
That's what the Supreme Court has further confirmed.
Yeah.
Now, it means that even the screening, the names the governor sent, the commissioners,
yes,
he sent to that assembly of Victor Okojumbo,
yes,
the three-man assembly.
yes,
They are screening the other appointees of government,
yes,
who had to be screened too. So are you saying that all that, they don't exist?
They don't exist.
As it stands now?
As it stands now.
And maybe that's why the Supreme Court said there's no government.
They don't exist at the moment. So you
no budget, no commissioners, no.
That's why the Supreme Court said it's a dictatorial government. You see, a lot of persons may not understand the import of what the Supreme Court meant. But when you take a look at what has happened in Rivers State, what has happened in Rivers State is just showmanship, where one man acts as the legislature and the executive. You have the judiciary that has consistently lambasted you and given judgments,
exactly,
pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution, and you have always disobeyed. So the best way to describe what has happened is dictatorship in Rivers State.
Dictatorship.
Yes.
In this 21st century, Nigeria.
Well, we still have it. And you see, I need to say something, that if you take a look at the way governors have run their states, you would realize that we have more of executive rascality than enforcing the provisions of the Constitution at the state level.
Or maybe they are just dictators in civilian garb.
No, the reason is because, you see, when you have a House of Assembly tied to the apron strings of the governor, which is the executive, there will always be constitutional infractions. So the reason why we're having like this in Rivers State is that you have an assembly that has chosen to be independent. And when you have an assembly that has chosen to be independent and you have this kind of political squabbles, you just know that the legislature is not tied to the apron strings of the executive.
Wow. So now I'm a little bit worried about what the future portends. You said in the last interview that everything depends on what the assembly wants to do.
Yes.
There's one particular word not very many people will be comfortable to, hear.
Okay.
Impeachment.
Okay.
Impeachment. Because from what the Supreme Court has said, it's obvious that the governor has violated all the, constitutional provisions that, would have saved him of any such act. But do you think that that would be the best way to go once Martin Egbule and the 26 others begin to sit? Do you think that's good enough for the state?
Well, I would not speak on political issues. The House of Assembly has powers pursuant to the provisions of Section 188 of the Constitution to commence impeachment proceedings against the governor. As to whether they will take such an action, I cannot hazard, and I cannot make any futuristic predictions as to what the House of Assembly would do. Mine is to speak on issues of law. Because politicians will always do everything to protect their political interests.
Okay.
So for me, I like to take a look at what the provisions of the law is, but I know that by virtue of Section 188, the House of Assembly has the powers, the constitutional powers, to impeach a governor. The next question would be whether there is actually a ground, because the Constitution says it's actually gross misconduct.
Gross misconduct.
But that gross misconduct has also been
has been defined by the Supreme
lot
Court.
of times by the
even
court.
the court.
So that the House of Assembly cannot just wake up to commence impeachment proceedings against the governor. But you also see the Supreme Court has also said that when you breach provisions of a constitution, that itself becomes a ground for impeachment. And one of the issues you have in Rivers State is even Section 120 makes it clear that you cannot spend without the House of Assembly. But as to whether that's the next line of action that the House of Assembly will take, I will not make any predictions.
Okay, now, the court also said, the Supreme Court also said, order the CBN, and I think the Accountant General of the Federation, to withhold all funds for Rivers State. But again, there's a caveat there. It says, until the governor presents the budget to the legitimate House of Assembly. Now, do you think that will happen? What do you think? I mean, and what does that portend, assuming the governor decides to do so?
Well, you know, by virtue of Section 287 of the Constitution, the judgment of the Supreme Court is enforceable in every part of the Federation. Yes, that's a judgment of the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court has given a judgment, remember, the Supreme Court itself is a court of law. The governor itself is also a product of law. The governor wouldn't have been governor if there was not laid down procedure for contest of election and announcement of a winner.
Okay.
So the governor himself is a product of law, and it is only intended that when Supreme Court gives a judgment, the governor would obey the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Wow. So, well, I think if you ask me, maybe that should be the way to go. Like you said, once the Supreme Court speaks, you don't need anybody to, because a lot of persons said the last time when the governor's team withdrew the owner appeal, and then even Falana also was on TV to say the Supreme Court didn't make any comment on that because it's been overtaken by events, and so many people, believed that, since the Supreme Court didn't speak, so there was no order. And then, I don't know, they didn't even want to talk about the judgment of the Court of Appeal, like the Court of Appeal does not even, matter.
Another question that a lot of persons should now ask is, why is the Supreme Court making comments on the House of Assembly, when the governor withdrew the appeal that touched primarily on the House of Assembly?
The leadership of the Assembly.
During my last appearance, I had said that the issue of defection itself is a trial matter. It's a matter where the court will need to entertain evidence.
Okay.
But now, what the governor has done was that the governor now started raising this issue of defection on appeal.
On appeal, not from the court of first instance.
Not from the court of first instance. So what he now did in practically all the cases that went to Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, the governor raised the issue of defection. So that's why you see the Supreme Court still speaking on the issue of defection. He raised the issue of defection in the judgment of the Court of Appeal delivered on the 13th of December, which was that of local government election. He also raised it in that of local government. So consistently, the governor has been raising the issue of defection. So it was on this basis that you now see the Supreme Court was now. So even if, like some persons will tell you that the reason that the governor gave for the reason the governor withdrew his appeal was because the issue has become spent. But we now see that issue coming up again in that of allocation, because if you don't have budget, how do you make withdrawals to spend money standing in the credit of the Consolidated Revenue Fund of Rivers State? So you have all of these issues. So I would not want to speak out as to how the governor handled his own case, but mine here is to tell you that beyond the fact that he didn't now raise this issue in the course of trial, so the court would have listened and to witnesses.
Oh.
Now, what he now did, he now started raising those issues at the appellate court. And the thing with that is that what you're now bringing to the Court of Appeal, even if you seek leave, is maybe documents. The Court of Appeal will not sit and be listening to witnesses.
Okay.
No, because the Court of Appeal is not a trial court with respect to all of these issues. Yeah, the Court of Appeal only reconsiders in let me use word that the general public would hear, reconsiders what the trial court has done. The Court of Appeal is not sitting to begin to listen to witnesses, tender this document, play this video. That's not what the Court of Appeal would do.
Let me take you on your colleague Soboe Eli, the last time he was here, he mentioned that the Supreme Court didn't try the matter. In fact, Justice Omotosho didn't try the matter on its merit. He said it was based on the what do you call it? Is it ex parte and injunctions and all that? And so because of that, it won't hold, and that's probably the reason why the Supreme Court did not make any pronouncement on that. But from what we see today, it's obvious that the Supreme Court has actually looked into the matter, the appeal, based on the judgment of the Omotosho and that of the Court of Appeal, even that of Justice Joyce Abdul Malik and the rest of them. But I'm a bit worried. Let me shift a bit from the legalistic side.
Okay, let me just before you shift, because I don't know if you now take us out of this stream of thoughts that you have with respect as to whether the trial court, Honorable Justice Omotosho, decided the matter on the merit. See what it means to decide the matter on the merit. When you say a matter was decided on the merit, it means that the court had the opportunity of looking at the processes filed by both counsel. You will now say this matter was determined on the merit. But you see, what we had at the Federal High Court, presided over by Honorable Justice Omotosho, was that the governor withdrew his processes. Now, when the governor withdrew his processes, what has happened is that the facts before the court will be the facts as stated by Right Honorable Martins Amehuli.
Because he was not even the one that filed the suit.
He was not the one that filed the suit. So the question you will ask, why are you going to withdraw a processes when the suit is still subsisting?
Exactly.
Now, uncontested facts are deemed admissible.
Okay.
So when you go to court and a party presents evidence or a fact, you need to contest it. Because any fact you don't contest is deemed that you have admitted those facts. Now, how else do you want the court to determine the matter on the merit? You withdrew your processes. You now went to the Court of Appeal. You lost at the Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court had the opportunity of determining that matter, but you withdrew your appeal.
Wow.
So how can you now be saying that the judgment does not have any effect because it was not determined on the merit? It was not determined on the merit. Is it that you were not served? Is it that the court foreclosed you from making any representation? You, by your own decision, withdrew your processes. So the facts before the court was facts presented by Right Honorable Martins Amehuli.
Wow. Okay, now, before I take the final question, let me take you out of this legal not everybody where they understand all this on a grammar. We'll go a bit to the political side, because some persons are actually waiting to hear the political side. Some are going to begin to blame somebody somewhere. Some persons already sent me messages on my inbox saying that just like what Soboe Eli also said, that the governor was ambushed by that peace deal, the 8-point peace deal at Aso Rock. He was asked to withdraw all the court's processes against Amehuli and all that, and then he went to court and withdrew, and then Martins and co refused to withdraw, and so that was the reason why he lost at the Federal High Court, and of course upheld by the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court. Do we really have to blame the president and the team of the peacemakers at Aso Rock for that?
Well, I'm wondering why we would blame any other person outside of the governor, because you instruct your lawyers. You see, first, was the court aware of that peace deal?
Okay.
Because
was it brought before the court?
It was before the court. Because when a court is seized of a matter and you want to settle, usually you will seek leave.
Okay.
Now, even if you don't seek leave, and you have settled. You still come back to court and tell the court, we have settled. We have settled is not you withdrawing your processes. We have settled is, my lord, this matter has been amicably resolved by the parties, and these are the terms of settlement. Or the plaintiff withdraws. The claimant is not the governor. And so when someone tells you that the governor was ambushed, did he withdraw a suit that he filed, or he withdrew his processes?
I think that's actually the...
Yes, because you don't withdraw a process that you filed as a defendant when you are not the claimant. So it's a claimant that ought to have withdrew that suit. But you see, if Martins had withdrawn that suit, imagine where we would have been without a budget.
Okay.
Imagine where we would have been without the House of Assembly screening commissioners.
Yeah.
Confirming
local governments.
Just imagine where we would have been without that kind of suit. So when someone says if we should blame the president, I just said something that we're entitled to legal practitioners of our choice.
Okay.
And so you also bear the consequences of the actions of your legal practitioner. So I don't think we should blame any other person outside of parties that were in court.
Wow, this is really another educative and informative session, you know, with God's Power Egbule. I said he's a lawyer in Port Harcourt and then a public affairs analyst, and he's done enormous justice to this matter, not just on this set, other stations, other media outlets. He's been talking and he's been consistent, and I think he's been actually vindicated by the judgment of the Supreme Court today. Well, anyway, before you go, before you go.
But don't ask me any question on politics.
No, I know I'm not going to ask you any question, but I'm going to ask you something because you're a Rivers man. Okay. You live in Rivers State. You do your legal practice here. I'm going to ask you, where do we go from here? How do we resolve this issue so that it does not, raise unnecessary crises or dust and all that? You see, is it possible for the governor to go ahead, present the budget, and then the assembly says, okay, we pardon you for your excesses, for peace to reign, let us, start all over. And then how do you, I don't know what it means for monies that have been spent, how you come back to present the budget again, because you didn't have the approval to spend. So how do you reconcile that? Is it that you're going to budget after spending? So it's a bit confusing, because why I'm asking these questions is that very many people are going to take to social media and all that. We are going to see people making commentaries, some on their own, some because of in sympathy to some persons. They will come out to say, oh no, the Supreme Court didn't do well. But again, I know that after the Supreme Court, unfortunately, there's no other court. So please, just one word, what do we do so that there will be peace in the state and things will move until we get to the next election?
Very simple. Section 287 of the Constitution, obey the judgment of courts.
Wow.
So any other comments on that will be political, and I don't want to sound political. I don't want to predict the next move of the governor. I don't want to predict the next move of the House of Assembly. Very simple. The Supreme Court has given a judgment. Parties should respect the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Thank you so much,
my pleasure,
Mr. God's Power. It's always very interesting to have you, and then we don't want to miss you. We would like to have you again.
No problem. My
because as events unfold, we want our viewers to keep hearing from, because you see a situation where somebody has been consistent on something, and then at the end of the day, both the lower court, the appeal court, the Supreme Court now vindicates the person. Of course, people will want to, and I believe that this is also good for your legal image. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we had an exciting moment with God's Power Egbule, lawyer, public affairs analyst. You heard him talk about the judgment of the Supreme Court, with regards to the case of Rivers, the political crisis that has been on for a year plus, right, in the state. Well, he said what happened in the court, we're still waiting for the enrolled order, and then we'll see what the full judgment, says. But the way it is now, it doesn't seem as if it is anything good for the governor and his team. But anyway, the Supreme Court also gave a proviso. He said if he presents the budget before Martins and Egbule. So, well, let's see how it goes. We'll continue on this matter because it's going to continue to be a developing story until we see the end of it. But before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I've been begging many of you to join us, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and other social media handles so that you can get unadulterated information. We are not being emotional. We are not, paid to please anyone. We are saying the way it is, and I can tell you for now, we have been vindicated to a large extent because we have been consistent with the truth. Please press your subscribe button, share to your friends and families, and make your comments, give us your feedback so that we continue to give you updates as they come. Thank you, and God bless you.